This video has been another popular request in the comment section. How do I develop my falsetto or my head voice? How do I know whether I'm in head voice or falsetto? What's the difference between those and pursuing mixed voice? All great questions, and if you search YouTube or search the internet for answers to those questions, you get a lot of range. So in this video, I'm going to show you and let you hear the differences between mixed voice, falsetto, head voice, and if you are doing some of the same sounds that I'm doing, you'll be able to tell what the difference is in your own voice. Then we're going to work on applying them, developing them, and being artistic with them. And as I've said in lots of other videos on this channel, knowing the terms, knowing that you're using falsetto versus head voice isn't really that important. What's really important is that we understand how to use our voice to express the kind of emotion and kind of dynamic that we want to express. And in this case, we're going to dive into three factors or three areas of our voice: closure, chord closure, airflow, and positioning. We're going to try to blend all three: mix, falsetto, head voice, and not say that we have to be classified as doing one or the other, but rather learning how to bridge the gap, learning how to be sensitive to the feel of our vocal cord positioning and closure and airflow so that we can be as artistic as possible.
Treasures of your mind that took so long to find, let them return. Lessons learned from bridges burned.
Before we go any further, a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be working with in this video assumes that you already understand the basics of breath support, you understand where to get your power from when you sing, and you have some experience with singing in other than chest voice. If you want to take your voice further and develop a solid foundation for the things that I just mentioned, be sure to click the link below and join my free vocal course. So as I said earlier, we're going to look at three components in depth as far as how they relate to different types of voices. And we're going to blur the lines between all of them. So if I just hold a note, like that, in my chest resonance, that's where we'll start. I am using a medium amount of airflow, and I have good chord closure. Versus I'm using the same amount of airflow, but the closure is not as constant, so it sounds airier, raspier. Now, if I do that same thing in my falsetto or my head voice, my different vocal positioning, where my chords are longer, they're stretched out a bit, I can moderate airflow. I can learn to moderate airflow the same way. There's good closure, even though my chords are longer. And there's the same note where I am leaving my chords less closed and a little bit floppier, allowing more air through. Now, a lot of people, and I think this is a good way to differentiate, a lot of people will define what I just did as falsetto and as head voice. Head voice is more powerful, more coordinated, more pure. Less air is happening. Versus falsetto, but here's where I think it doesn't matter so much whether we're saying one is one or the other. We can do that same thing in our chest resonance. We can manage closure and airflow in any one of our vocal positions. It's really about identifying how to do each one in both areas and then using them in a way that fits what we're trying to do. So what we want to do first, oftentimes the easier thing to do when we're getting up into those higher, thinner notes, that resonance that transfers up here, we feel it back and in our head more as opposed to vibrating in our chest. We'll call that the head resonance. It's easier to do that with less chord closure. So, and we want to get there by whispering, like this. We don't want to whisper a lot, but and then introduce a little bit of phonation, introduce a little bit of actual tone in there in our chest resonance. Hi, hi, hi. This is a medium whisper. And then let's, rather than going for any sort of pitch, let's go higher and higher and higher like this. We're not trying to sing a particular note, but we're leaving our chords kind of open, like we're hoarse, like we're sort of trying to whisper, and we're going higher and higher and higher and higher. That would be a falsetto sound. Now, let's try to close them off just like we do here. Now I'm going to talk like Mickey Mouse. Now, some people would call this falsetto too. That's fine. Hi, hi. Mickey has good closure, right? Mickey is not, hey, oh, no. He's, hey, oh, no. So experimenting with the different feels there where we're letting our chords pass more air versus having them closed. And this is really an exercise in using compression. Because once we close those chords in either resonance, hey, we can add more compression. If you haven't seen my video on compression, be sure to watch it. Compression is essentially holding back air, pushing more air from our primary support and using a different mechanism in our throat to hold back air. Hey, which can lead to grit. Or it can just lead to a more defined and pure sound if we're balancing it right. Obviously, no compression. I'm letting tons of air through. Hey, hey, using a little bit of compression, but enough to just make sure I have chord closure. It's not like I'm backing up air. Now I'm backing up air. Now I'm backing up air. Yes, I am. Let's take the same thing to the higher resonance. Letting lots of air through. Then doing that, I'm using a little bit of compression. Now because the chords are closed, I can use even more compression. And now it starts to sound pretty full. But it's the same vocal positioning as falsetto. I think that's where people get hung up. And it's important to note that a well-supported head voice using some compression is a form of mix. La, 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 la. If you get that down, if you're able to support your head voice, making the transition to a chesty mix, like so many of us like to get, is the next natural progression. I've done lots of videos on mix and chesty mix, so be sure to check those out. So let's take the transition again. Close the chords, add more support and compression. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Now let's go to the chesty mix. La, 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 la. You can really take it all the way there, by understanding how to gradually add different aspects to the feel. I think that by looking at each one of these things as different voices, it hinders our ability to do what I just did, which is go from what people call a falsetto all the way to a belted chesty mix. I want to think of it as one voice, as one thing, but by adding different aspects and adjusting the feel little bits here and there, I'm able to span the whole range without the trouble of separation. So let's span that whole range of sound and feel again. And try this yourself. Try to get close to some of these things and see if you can do it. That's just a well-supported using compression head voice. I haven't done the chesty mix thing yet. Although, like I said, head voice is a form of a mix because you're starting to use more support. And what ends up happening when you start to go higher and higher, if you've got your support dialed in correctly, if you're not worried about being in a particular resonance or thinking about your voice in a certain way and just kind of let things happen as you make that support transfer and that resonance transfer gradually, as you go higher and higher, your chest voice will then start kind of telling you, oh, that's really high. And so there's this point where grit and mix and cool sounds, other cool sounds start happening because you start to engage your break. And your break is what lies between those two primary resonances, chest, head. So by working through that full spectrum of sounds, we let the voice do its thing naturally and we capitalize on what it's good at. And then the awareness of our break becomes our good friend. Let's do it a couple more times. And this time I'm going to use the word or sound yai, 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 yai. And this is how you should practice and start discovering it. Whisper, yai, 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 like that. Then yeah, 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 yeah. In your chest resonance, in your primary resonance. Yeah, 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 yeah. Now throw it up so you feel it here. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Don't worry about hitting a particular pitch. Yeah, 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 yeah. And it's okay if it's weak and raspy. It's supposed to be at this point. We're getting familiar with how every stage feels. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Now, let's close our chords. Now let's aim for more support. I'm pushing from here a lot. That's support, that's compression, that's closure. And we're going to keep going and add more compression until our vocal cords are holding back tons of air. And as we keep pushing, we're going to start to feel the resonance want to transfer from here to here, even though we're high. That's going to engage our body's natural response to want to use the break. And then using that feel, we're going to kind of sit in it. And that's where our grit is going to come from. It's super cool. That's the transition. It's ugly sounding at the moment, but we can do some really cool things with it. Part of truly developing your falsetto or your head voice is understanding how it feels to utilize it and blend it with your chest resonance. That's what makes it, that's what sells it. That's what makes it really cool and usable. I think a lot of people, when they start going about developing their falsetto, they're like, okay, now I'm singing falsetto. Oh, okay, now I'm singing chest voice. And they treat it as two separate things. Don't do that. Make it your goal to treat it as one thing and develop them together. Now, I'm going to throw on a track. You heard a little bit of it in the beginning. I'm going to muse over it like I've done many times before, and I'm going to blend things. I'm going to be in pure falsetto. I'm going to be in head voice. There's going to be a little bit of chest in there. I'm going to be very contemplative while I'm doing it. I'm very careful. And remember, it doesn't really matter what it's called. It matters how we use them all together. And that helps each one of those classifications, if we care to make them, feel and sound stronger and more intentional. Let me know what you think of this video. If you have any questions, be sure to post them below. Also, be sure to join my free singing course if you haven't already. We'll see you for more real soon.